All right, let's get right to it. The top story in artificial intelligence tonight is a big one. A leading AI model has just been given a colossal upgrade to its memory and, just as importantly, a major change to its price. We're going to break down exactly what this means for, well, pretty much everything.
So here's the bottom line, right up front. One of the world's top AI models can now remember way more information than ever before. And look, this isn't just some minor tweak. It's a fundamental shift that unlocks brand new capabilities for some really complex stuff. I'm talking analyzing massive legal documents, or even debugging an entire software project in one single pass.
And here's the other half of the story, which is just as important. The company behind this has made all this new power way more accessible. They've totally eliminated the premium price for using this massive memory, which basically slashes the cost for the most demanding jobs. The takeaway here is simple. It's more power for less money.
Okay, so now that we've got the headline, let's really dig in. You and we hear these terms all the time, right? Tokens, context windows. It's time we translate that tech jargon into something we can actually wrap our heads around.
You know, the basic building block for these AIs is something called a token. Now, it's not exactly a character, and it's not really a full word either. The best way to think of it is kind of like a syllable. So the word unbelievable isn't just one thing to the AI. It gets broken down into 4 tokens. Unbelievable. Getting this is really the key to understanding the massive scale we're about to talk about.
So, the next piece of the puzzle is the context window. Just think of it as the AI's short-term memory, or maybe like a digital workbench. Everything you give it, your instructions, any files you upload, the entire back and forth of your conversation, it all sits right there on that workbench at the same time. And it's simple. The bigger the workbench, the more complicated the project it can handle without, forgetting what it started doing.
So, what does a 1 million token memory actually look like in practice? Well, in plain English, that's about 750,000 words. That is just a staggering amount of information to hold in your active memory all at once.
And to really put that number into perspective for you, 1 million tokens is about the same as 10 average-sized novels, or an entire pretty large software codebase. You could feed it thousands of pages of dense legal contracts, or something like 600 images or PDF pages, and it would hold all of that in its head. This isn't just a small step up, it's a giant leap in capacity.
Okay, so a bigger memory is impressive on paper. But what can you actually do with it? Let's move away from the theory and look at how pros are already using this new power out in the real world.
For a software engineer like Anton Burikov, this is an absolute game changer for finding bugs in code. He says that with this huge memory, he can search, then research, and come up with fixes all in one go. Because, and this is the key part, the critical details don't vanish. The AI doesn't forget the start of the problem by the time it gets to the end anymore.
And in the legal world, the impact is just as big. Machine learning engineer Mauricio Wolfovich explains that whether he's working with a 400-page deposition or trying to find hidden connections in a huge case file, this tech now delivers materially higher quality answers. It's like having a paralegal who is instantly read and perfectly remembers every single word on every page.
Then you have the world of science. Dr. Alex Wisnergross says his systems can now pull together information from hundreds of research papers, complex proofs, and code bases all in a single pass. And the goal here? To dramatically accelerate fundamental and applied physics research. This is really about speeding up the actual pace of human discovery.
Now look, this is all undeniably powerful stuff. But to really get the full picture, we need a bit of a reality check. Because as developers are finding out, there's a really important question you have to ask. Is a bigger memory always a better one? So let's see what actually happens when you push this new memory to its limits. What are people in the community discovering now that it's out in the wild? And the feedback from users has been really insightful. They're reporting that on super complex tasks, the quality can start to drop off a bit once you get past that 250 to 500,000 token mark. Plus, all of these giant models suffer from what they call the lost-in-the-middle problem. Basically, they remember stuff from the beginning and the end of a long document much better than the information that's buried deep inside. So the general feeling is this, that 1 million token window is fantastic as breathing room so the AI doesn't get interrupted, but it's not some magic bullet for creating one single gigantic project. And that brings us to the final, and you could argue the most critical piece of this whole story. The technology is one thing, sure, but the economics are another. Let's take a look at why this change in pricing is every bit as important as the change in memory. So before, any request that went over 200,000 tokens got hit with a pretty hefty premium price. Well, as you can see, that surcharge is completely gone now. The price for the most powerful model, Opus, has been seriously cut for these big jobs, and you pay the same flat rate whether your request is tiny or it fills up that entire 1 million token window.
Now here's the real implication. This isn't just about saving a few bucks. It completely changes how developers can even think about building AI applications. See, before, engineers had to come up with all these complicated workarounds to feed the AI little chunks of data just to avoid those high costs. Now, they can just send the entire document or the whole codebase. The pressure to constantly minimize how much you're sending is, for the most part, gone.
So we've seen the huge technological leap, and we've seen the economic shift that makes it accessible. And when you put those two things together, it leaves us with one really profound question. When an AI's memory becomes this vast and this affordable, what kind of problems, the ones we used to think were impossible, finally become solvable for the very first time? That is the question that developers and innovators everywhere are now racing to answer.